The twin moons hung over the alien village, their pale light painting the roofs and fields in silver. It was a quiet night, and the wind carried the sound of children laughing. The alien mother, tall and graceful, stood at the edge of the square, her young daughter holding her hand tightly. The girl looked up, her wide eyes shining. "Mama, will the stars ever fall down?" she asked. The mother smiled gently, her long fingers brushing her daughter's hair. "No, little one. The stars watch over us. They never fall." But that night, something darker than a star streaked through the sky. It was not light, it was shadow. And with it came the cry of horns and the roar of fire. From the hills above, raiders came like a storm, armored figures with cruel eyes. They fired burning arrows into the village. Houses caught fire. Screams filled the air. The peaceful night was broken. The mother pulled her daughter close. "Run," she whispered. But the child was frozen in fear, her small hands shaking. The mother shielded her with her body, her eyes wide with terror. An arrow hissed through the night, and before she could move, it struck. The iron head pierced her chest. Pain exploded, but she did not let go of her child. She held her tighter, using her body as a shield. She gasped, her knees weak, her blood spilling into the dirt. She thought her life was ending. The daughter screamed, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Help! Someone help!" But no one came. The villagers ran in panic. Some hid, some tried to fight. But the raiders were too strong, too many. In the smoke and fire, hope began to vanish. The mother fell to her knees, the arrow deep inside her, her vision blurred, but she whispered, "Stay behind me, don't move." Her last strength was only for her daughter. Then in the middle of fire and screams, a figure appeared, not alien, not raider, but human. He walked in to the chaos with steady steps, his armor dented, his weapon glowing faintly, his eyes sharp like a hunter. The villagers saw him and cried out, "A human, an outsider, a destroyer." Fear and hatred spread in whispers. They had heard stories of humans, how they conquered, how they burned worlds. But the little girl did not see an enemy. She saw only a chance. Her tiny hands pulled at his arm. "Please, help my mama, she's dying." The human looked down at the child, then at the alien mother on the ground, her breath shallow, the arrow still in her chest, her eyes full of pain but still holding her daughter safe. He did not speak. He knelt beside her, his hands quick, pulling strange tools from a pack. He pressed a device to her wound. Light flared, sealing blood for a moment. The mother flinched, weak and confused, her voice faint. Why would a human save me?" He gave no answer, only focused on stopping the bleeding, his movements calm but urgent. The raiders noticed him. They shouted, pointing their weapons. A wave of attackers rushed toward the square. The human stood, placing himself between the raiders and the wounded mother. His weapon hummed, glowing brighter. He faced them alone. The villagers watched in silence, torn between fear and shock. Could a human really stand for them? Could an outsider be their shield? The little girl clung to her mother, whispering, "Mama, he will save us. He will save you." The raiders laughed, thinking one man was no threat, but the human did not move back. He raised his weapon, his voice calm but firm. "You will not touch them." Lightning cracked from his weapon, striking the ground. The raiders stopped, their faces twisted in surprise. The night was filled with smoke, fire, and the smell of blood. But in the center of it stood a human, protecting an alien mother and her child. The villagers whispered again, this time with doubt. Maybe he is not like the others." The mother's eyes fluttered, her strength fading, but before darkness claimed her, she saw the human stand tall, unshaken, and for a brief moment, she felt something she never thought she would feel toward a human. Hope. The arrows still rained, the raiders still screamed, but something had changed in the sky that night. It was no longer only fear and fire. Now there was a spark carried by a human who should have been their enemy, yet chose to save them. And as the mother slipped into unconsciousness, her last sight was the human raising his weapon again, holding the line, a stranger who might change everything. The night after the attack was heavy with smoke. The fire still smoldered, the cries of the wounded rising into the twin moon sky. The alien village that once knew only peace now stood scarred, broken, and full of fear. In the middle of it all lay the alien mother, pale and weak, the strange human's tool glowing softly against her wound. The bleeding slowed, but her strength had not returned. Beside her sat her little daughter, eyes red from crying, clutching her mother's hand as if letting go would mean losing her forever. The human moved among them, silent, his hands steady. He worked on the wounded with medicines no alien had ever seen, a spray that closed burns, a powder that eased pain. Some villagers who had begged the gods for help now watched with uneasy eyes as this outsider saved lives. "Do not trust him," whispered one elder, his face twisted with fear. "Humans are killers. He hides his true purpose," another agreed. Maybe he poisoned her so he can control us. Suspicion spread like smoke through the crowd, but the girl clung to the human's arm, her small voice firm. He saved Mama. He saved her. You must see. The human gave no words of offense. He did not argue. He did not boast. He simply continued his work, cleaning the wound, wrapping the mother's chest with soft human fabric stronger than alien cloth. The mother opened her eyes, her voice weak. Why? Why are you here, human? Why save me? For the first time he spoke, his voice calm and deep, because no one else would. The villagers stirred, confused, angered, afraid. They whispered again, a trick. It must be a trick. Later that night, the leaders gathered. They argued in harsh tones. Some demanded he be cast out. Others feared the raiders would return if he stayed. One shouted, if the enemy finds a human here, they will burn us all. The human sat quietly at the edge of the circle, his eyes steady, listening but saying nothing. Finally he rose, his shadow long in the firelight. The raiders will return whether I stay or leave, he said, and they are not the only threat. The words hung heavy in the air. Silence spread. Even the children stopped crying. He looked around at them. You think the raiders are your greatest fear? But they are only the hand of a greater master, a power that hunts this world, and if you do not prepare, your village will vanish in fire. Gasps rose, fear spread. One elder shouted, lies, more human lies. But deep in their hearts, some wondered if he spoke truth. The daughter looked up at him, her eyes wide. Then stay, fight with us, she pleaded. The mother, weak but listening, turned her head toward him, her voice soft as wind. Why would you fight for those who call you enemy? His eyes met hers, and for a moment his face softened. Because I remember another child, long ago, who had no one to save her. He did not explain further. He looked away, his silence heavier than his words. The villagers could not decide. Their fear and mistrust grew stronger. Some wanted him gone, some wanted him dead, but the was. The daughter refused to let go of him. She followed him wherever he walked, her small hand gripping his sleeve, the only one who believed he was not a monster. That night, shadows moved beyond the hills, watchers sent by the raiders. They saw the glow of human tools, they saw the human moving among the aliens, and they returned to their master with news. At dawn, the human stood at the edge of the village, staring at the horizon, his weapon resting against his shoulder. He could feel the storm gathering. Behind him, the mother tried to sit up, her body weak but her spirit unwilling to break. She watched him in silence, the man who should have been her enemy, now the shield between her daughter and death. The villagers whispered again, torn between fear and gratitude. Some wanted him gone before more danger came. Others began to wonder if perhaps this human was different. But the truth was clear, whether they trusted him or not. Danger was coming. And as the wind carried the smell of ash across the village, the human turned and said quietly, if you want to live, you will need me. And if you do not trust me, you will still need me. The mother closed her eyes, the words echoing in her heart. She had no strength to speak, but she knew one thing. The moment the arrow struck her, her life should have ended. And yet she lived, because a human stranger had chosen to save her. And as her daughter's small voice called out, Mama, he will protect us. The mother wondered if perhaps mercy, even from an enemy, could change the fate of their world. The night grew colder, the stars burned brighter, and the question lingered in every mind. Who was this human, and what destiny had brought him to them? The village tried to return to silence, but silence no longer belonged to them. The smell of smoke lingered, the ground was black with ash, and the cries of the wounded never truly faded. Every corner of the village carried the memory of fire. The alien mother rested inside a hut, her chest bound with human fabric, her breaths shallow, but steady. Beside her, her daughter slept curled against her arm, yet her small fingers still clung tightly to her mother's sleeve. Even in dreams, she refused to let go. The human sat outside, sharpening his blade beneath the pale moons, his eyes never closing. He listened to the whispers of the village. He felt the weight of their suspicion. He heard every word. They say he brings war with him, one villager muttered. Humans always bring war, another hissed. Better to hand him to the raiders before more fire comes. Their voices were full of fear, but not all agreed. Some remembered the burning arrows, the human's weapon cutting through the enemy, and the way he saved the mother's life. Without him, she would be dead, one said softly. Without him, maybe we all would be dead. At dawn, the human rose. He walked to the edge of the fields, his eyes searching the hills, and he saw what the villagers did not. Small glints of metal in the distance, shadows moving where no villager walked. The raiders were watching. He returned to the village, his voice steady. They are not gone. They are waiting. They will strike again, and this time not only with arrows. Fear spread quickly. The leaders gathered. The elders argued. One slammed his staff into the ground. If this is true, it is his fault. The raiders follow him. He is the curse. The human stood silent for a moment. Then he spoke. The raiders are only the hand, not the mind. The true enemy is greater, a power that uses them like tools. They burn worlds, they enslave races, and now their eyes are on yours. The villagers gasped. They whispered to each other. A greater enemy, worse than the raiders. Their voices shook. The human continued. If you think hiding will save you, it will not. If you think giving me away will end this, it will not. They will burn this village whether I stay or leave. The mother, still weak, heard his words from her bed. She turned her head to her daughter and whispered, "He speaks of war, war beyond our walls." The daughter only nodded, her young eyes full of a strange courage. "Then we must fight with him, Mama." That night the leaders met again. The human was brought before them. The firelight danced on his face, his shadow long and sharp. One leader pointed at him. "Why should we trust you, human, when your kind is known as destroyers?" He lifted his head, his eyes hard. "Because I am here, and not with them. Because I saved when I could have killed. Because if you do nothing, your children will have no tomorrow." The mother struggled to rise from her bed, her wound burning. Yet she walked into the circle, her daughter helping her, her voice weak but firm. "He saved my life. He protected my child. If he meant us harm, he would not have done that." The leaders murmured, their doubt shaken, but still fear chained their hearts. "What if he is a spy?" one asked. "What if his kindness is a trap?" The human answered quietly, "Then kill me now, and when the fire comes, remember that you chose fear over survival." The silence was deep. No one moved. The only sound was the crackle of fire. The mother's eyes lingered on him, her thoughts torn between fear and gratitude, between what she had been taught and what she had seen with her own eyes. The daughter stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the silence. "He is not a spy. He is hope. You cannot see it, but I can." The villagers shifted uneasily, their faith in the old stories breaking, their fear of the future growing. Outside the hut, the night grew darker, shadows stretched long, and in the hills the raiders lit signal fires, their master's command glowing red against the horizon. The human saw it, his hand tightening on his weapon. He whispered to himself, "It begins." The mother, lying in her bed once more, felt a chill creep through her chest. She looked at her daughter's face, full of stubborn light, and she wondered if this human was truly sent by chance or by fate. The village did not know it yet, but the shadow of war had already fallen on them, and in that shadow, their survival would depend on trust in the one they feared most. The morning came heavy with silence, the smoke of distant fires rising like black scars against the pale sky. The raiders had not yet struck again, but everyone felt the weight of their return. The village moved in fear. Every sound of wind in the grass made hearts tremble. The human stood at the center of it all, sharpening his blade, his eyes scanning the horizon. He never rested, he never laughed, he never even explained who he truly was. Yet he remained, guarding those who still whispered against him. Inside her hut, the alien mother lay propped against a wall, her wound bound, her breathing steadier now. Her daughter sat beside her, playing with a carved wooden bird. The little girl looked toward the doorway, waiting for the shadow of the human to pass. She always waited for him now. The mother noticed, her voice weak but curious. "Why do you look for him, child?" The daughter answered without hesitation. "Because he saved you, because he saved us, because I trust him." The mother closed her eyes, her heart conflicted. Her people had always told her humans were monsters. But every time she opened her eyes, she remembered his hands stopping her blood, his figure standing between her and the arrows. It was not the image of a monster, it was the image of a shield. That afternoon, the human trained in the field outside the village, his weapon humming as he moved. The daughter crept closer, her small steps careful. She watched him, her eyes wide with wonder. "Teach me," she asked. He turned, surprised. "Teach you what?" "Teach me to be strong, like you," she said, her tiny hands clenched. He studied her for a long moment, then placed a stick in her hands, showing her how to hold it, how to stand. The girl laughed as she tried, stumbling, yet trying again, her courage shining brighter than her skill. The villagers watched from a distance, whispering. Some frowned, some softened. The mother saw from the hut, her heart tight. She feared for her daughter, yet she could not deny the warmth in her chest. The human was not teaching her violence, he was teaching her survival. Later, when the girl ran to her mother, showing off her new stance, the mother smiled faintly despite her pain. "Be careful, little one," she said, but the daughter shook her head proudly. "He said I must be brave even when afraid." That night, as the stars burned, the human sat near the fire, The mother gathered strength to walk to him, her daughter asleep in her arms. She placed the child on a blanket, then sat across from him, the fire crackling between them. Her voice was soft but steady. "Why do you help her? Why do you help me when my people call you enemy?" He stared into the flames, his face shadowed. "Because mercy matters, even when it is not returned." His words were heavy, as if carved from stone. She tilted her head. "Mercy, from a human, my people would laugh at the thought." He looked at her then, his eyes sharp yet carrying pain. "Then your people do not know the whole truth." She wanted to ask more, but the night was broken by a scream. A villager ran into the square. "Raiders, the hills are moving with fire." The human rose instantly. "Hey." His weapon in hand, he looked to the mother. "Stay with your child, guard her." She shook her head weakly. "I will not hide, not again." Though her wound burned, she stood holding her daughter close. From the hills, red flames glowed. The raiders marched with drums, their shadows endless. The villagers panicked, some grabbed weapons, some prepared to flee. The human shouted over the fear, his voice like thunder. "Stand with me, or fall alone." The villagers hesitated, their fear chaining them, but the mother stepped forward, her voice carrying across the square. "He saved me when no one else could. I will not betray him. I will not run. If you fear him more than the raiders, then you are already lost." Her words struck them harder than any blade. The whispers died slowly, one by one. Villagers raised their spears, their bows, their tools turned into weapons. The human looked at her, their eyes met. No words passed, but something deeper grew between them. Trust, fragile, yet real. The daughter gripped her mother's hand, whispering, "See, Mama, I told you, he will save us." As the drums grew louder and the fire spread across the horizon, the human raised his weapon, his shadow stretching tall against the flames. The villagers gathered behind him, and for the first time they did not see him as a monster. They saw him as a shield. The bond of mercy had begun, born from blood, fear, and an arrow that should have ended a life, but instead began a story that might change them all. The night trembled with the sound of drums, each beat echoing across the valley like the heartbeat of war. Torches burned on the hills, carried by raiders who marched in endless rows, their armor gleaming with red fire, their voices shouting war songs that froze the blood of every villager. The alien mother stood at the center of the square, her daughter holding her tightly, her chest still wounded, but her spirit no longer weak. She stared at the horizon, fear in her eyes, but also defiance. Beside her stood the human, his weapon glowing faintly, his armor battered yet unshaken. The villagers gathered with shaking hands, some carrying old spears, some carrying farming tools sharpened into blades. They were not warriors, they were survivors, but tonight they had no choice. Tonight they would fight. The human's voice cut through the noise, calm but sharp. "They will strike soon, they will burn everything, but if we stand together, they will break against us. Fear will kill you faster than their fire, so throw it away." The villagers muttered, some nodding, some trembling, but his words pressed into them like iron. The daughter whispered, "Mama, is he right?" The mother bent down, her voice soft. "Yes, child, he is right. We must be brave." Though her heart shook, she held her daughter's hand steady. The drums stopped. Silence fell like a blade. Then the raiders charged. Fire arrows filled the sky, raining down on roofs and fields. The villagers cried out, shields raised. Hearts pounding, the human stepped forward, his weapon flashing, each strike of light cutting arrows from the sky, each blast forcing raiders to scatter. He moved like a storm, calm yet deadly. The villagers gasped, seeing one man fight like 10. Still, the raiders pushed forward, breaking through fences, setting huts aflame. The villagers fought with desperate courage, their fear turning into raw rage, their tools striking against armored invaders. The mother pulled her daughter behind a wall, lifting a spear with shaking hands. Her wound burned, but she refused to fall. When a raider lunged at her, the human appeared, his blade striking first, his body shielding hers again. She gasped, "Why save me again?" And he answered without turning, "Because you are still standing." The battle roared, fire spread, smoke rose into the twin moons. The human fought at the front, but he was not alone. The villagers who once doubted him now stood at his back, striking, shouting, pushing the raiders away. The daughter peeked from behind her mother, her small voice trembling but proud. "He fights for us, Mama. He fights for everyone." The raiders grew frustrated. Their leader roared, sending in larger warriors with heavy weapons. They smashed walls, tore through defenses, but the human met them head-on, his weapon glowing brighter, his body battered yet unbroken. He shouted to the villagers, "Do not break, hold your ground." His words gave them fire, their fear turning into strength, their doubt into unity. The mother saw it with her own eyes, the impossible truth. The man her people called Destroyer was now their shield. She felt her fear shift into something else, something she had never thought she would feel for a human: trust. The battle dragged on, sparks lighting the night, screams and fire mixing with the clash of steel. The raiders fell one by one, surprised by the strength of those they thought weak. At last, the enemy pulled back, retreating to the hills, their leaders shouting curses, promising to return with greater fire. The villagers stood in the ruins of their homes, exhausted, wounded, but alive. The human lowered his weapon, his body trembling with fatigue, blood dripping from cuts across his arms. Yet he still stood tall, his eyes scanning the horizon, making sure the enemy was truly gone. The villagers slowly gathered around him, no longer with suspicion, but with awe. One elder whispered, "Without him, we would all be dead." Another bowed his head. "Perhaps we were wrong." The mother stepped forward, her daughter beside her. She met his eyes, her voice soft but firm. "You saved us all, again. Why?" He looked at her, his face weary but unbroken. "Because I could not watch you fall." The daughter smiled through her tears, hugging her mother tightly. "I told you, Mama, he was sent to us." The fire still burned, the village scarred, but something new had been born that night. Not just survival, but unity. Not just defense, but trust. The human, once a stranger, once a monster in their stories, had stood in fire for them. And now even the most fearful villager could not deny the truth. This human was different, but as the night settled, the human's eyes darkened. He knew this victory was only the beginning. The raiders would return, and behind them, the greater power still waited in the shadows. And though the villagers cheered, though the daughter smiled, though the mother's heart warmed, the horizon still burned, and the fire of war had only begun. The village was quiet after the battle, too quiet. The fires were put out, the wounded rested, the dead were buried. Yet no one celebrated. The raiders had retreated, but their leader's words still echoed. "We will return with greater fire." Everyone knew the storm was not over. The human walked through the ruins, his armor scorched, his blade heavy. Villagers stepped aside as he passed, no longer calling him monster, yet still unsure what he truly was. Children looked at him with wide eyes, elders with quiet fear, and warriors with new respect. Inside her hut, the alien mother sat upright, her daughter curled against her lap, her wound still aching, but her spirit stronger than before. She looked at a human as he entered, her voice soft but sharp. "You fought harder than any of us. But why? Why risk everything for strangers?" He did not answer at first. He placed his weapon against the wall, his eyes heavy with shadows. "Because if I did not, your world would end tonight, and because I once failed to protect my own." The mother wanted to ask more, but his silence closed the door. The following day, the enemy returned, not with blades, not with fire, but with words. A messenger arrived, standing at the edge of the village with a white banner. The villagers gathered, holding their breath. The man shouted, his voice carrying across the fields, "Give us the human, and we will spare you. Resist, and we will burn your world to ash." Gasps filled the air. Some villagers looked at the human with fear, others with guilt. The elders whispered quickly, "If we hand him over, our people will live. He is not one of us. He is only one life. Better to sacrifice him than all of us." The human stood silent, his eyes steady, as if the words did not surprise him. He had expected this. The daughter broke the silence, clutching her mother's hand, shouting with all her small strength, "No, you cannot give him. He saved us. He saved Mama." Her voice trembled but carried, cutting through the whispers. The mother placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, her heart torn. She looked at the human, remembering the arrow in her chest, remembering his hand saving her life, his body standing between her and death. She whispered, "He is one of us now." The council met. The villagers argued, fear against loyalty, survival against honor. One elder shouted, "If we refuse, they will destroy us. We must sacrifice him." Another countered, "If we betray him, what hope will we have left?" Their voices clashed like swords. The human stepped forward, his voice calm. "If giving me saves you, then do it. I did not come here to be worshipped. I came to do what was right. If my life is the price, I accept it." The daughter ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "No, you cannot leave. You cannot let them take you," she cried, clutching his arm. The mother stood slowly, her wound burning, yet her voice rang firm. "No, you will not go. We will not hand you to them. You are not a price to be paid. You are our shield, and I will not betray you." Her words silenced the council. The villagers stared at her, shocked. The same woman who had once feared humans now stood against her own leaders for one. The human looked at her, something unspoken passing between them. Respect, trust, maybe even something deeper. He lowered his head slightly, not as a soldier, but as a man. The messenger still waited, his voice mocking. "Choose quickly, your lives are his." The human stepped forward, raising his voice across the fields. "Tell your master, I am not leaving. If he wants me, he must come and face me himself." The messenger laughed, retreating into the hills, promising blood. That night the village prepared, weapons sharpened, barricades raised. The human trained the strongest among them, showing them how to fight, how to stand, how to strike with courage instead of fear. The mother watched him, her chest aching, not only from her wound but from the weight of what was coming. She spoke to him quietly by the fire, her daughter asleep beside them. "Why do you stay when you could leave and save yourself?" He looked into the flames, his voice low. "Because once, when I was a child, no one stood for me. I swore that if I could be the shield for someone else, I would never walk away." Her heart stirred, her fear melting into something new. She reached out, her hand brushing his arm, not in fear, but in silent thanks. The stars burned above, the horizon glowed with enemy fire. The villagers gathered, no longer whispering doubts but standing together, because the choice had been made. They would not sacrifice him, they would fight beside him, and in that moment, as the drums of war thundered closer, the alien mother knew a truth that could never be undone. The human was no longer an outsider, he was one of them, and his fight was now their fight. The night was heavy with the sound of drums, the hills burned with torches. The enemy had come, not as raiders in scattered bands, but as an army, their leader at the front, tall, armored in black steel, his voice carrying like thunder. "Hand us the human, or we burn you all." The villagers stood together, their weapons clutched tightly, fear in their eyes, but no one moved to betray him. The choice had been made. They would fight, live or die. Beside the human who had bled for them, the alien mother stood among them, her wound still raw but her spirit unbroken, her daughter at her side, gripping a small spear, her young face set with courage. The human stood ahead of them all, his weapon glowing faintly, his body a wall between the villagers and the army that sought to end them. The enemy laughed, mocking, "One human against us all, you think he can save you?" The villagers flinched, but the human's voice rang steady, "I will not fall, and neither will they." The battle began with fire. Arrows rained, flames spread. The enemy charged with blades and beasts. The ground shook with their march, but the human met them head-on, his weapon flashing, light striking through the dark. The villagers fought behind him, spears striking, bows singing, tools turned into weapons biting into armored flesh. The raiders fell in shock, not expecting resistance so fierce. The mother fought too, her body weak but her hands steady. She guarded her daughter, striking at those who came too close, each movement fueled by the memory of the arrow that once should have killed her. Each strike a promise to never fall while her child still breathed. The human moved like a storm, his blade cutting down raiders, his shield blocking fire, his voice shouting commands, lifting the villagers' courage. "Stand! Do not break! Push them back!" The daughter's eyes shone as she watched him, whispering to her mother, "He fights like 10 men, Mama." "No, like 100, the mother whispered back. "Yes, child, he fights as if the whole world rests on his shoulders." But the enemy leader roared, stepping into the fray, his massive blade crashing against the human's weapon. Sparks flew, the ground shook with each clash, their battle shook the hearts of all who watched. The villagers faltered, fear rising again, but the mother raised her voice, weak yet powerful. "Do not fear, he is not alone, he fights with us, and we fight with him." Her words lit fire in their hearts. They surged forward again, striking, shouting, refusing to fall. The duel raged on, the human and the enemy leader clashing again and again. The human was bleeding, his armor cracked, yet his eyes burned with unyielding fire. The enemy sneered, "Why fight for them? They are not your kind." The human gritted his teeth. "Because mercy is stronger than fear, because they deserve to live." With one final strike, the human drove his weapon through the leader's chest. The black steel shattered. The great warrior fell. Silence followed, then cries of shock as the enemy army broke, their courage fleeing with their leader's death. They ran back into the hills, leaving fire and ash behind. The villagers stood stunned, the battlefield silent except for the crackle of flames. Then slowly, they raised their voices, cheering, weeping, embracing one another, not believing they had survived. The human lowered his weapon, his body trembling, his breath heavy. The mother walked to him, her daughter at her side, her eyes filled with tears. "You saved us again and again. Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. He looked at her, weary but firm. "Because no one else would." The daughter threw her arms around him, her small voice soft but full of truth. "You are not just human. You are family now." The villagers gathered, no longer whispering doubt, no longer hiding fear. They bowed their heads, Some even knelt, not out of worship, but out of respect, for the one who had stood in fire for them. The mother placed a hand on his arm, her voice soft but strong. "You came to us as a stranger. We called you enemy, but you gave us life. You gave us hope. You are one of us now." The human stood silent, the weight of her words pressing into his heart. For the first time in years he felt something he thought he had lost: belonging. The horizon still glowed with fire. The world was not safe. The greater power still waited beyond the stars. But for this night, under the twin moons, the village had survived. The daughter looked to the sky, her voice quiet. "He was sent by the stars to save us." The mother smiled faintly, whispering back, "No, child, he was sent by his own heart." And as the human stood among them, no longer an outsider, no longer a stranger, but one of their own, the truth was clear. Sometimes mercy is stronger than fear, and sometimes the light of humanity shines brightest in the darkest of worlds.